So a while back there was a Reddit post asking about the craziest space or alien fact you know. It was a popular thread, and some of the top answers got compiled into slideshow articles on Popular Mechanics and Yahoo News and stuff. They were usually framed as 10 theories about space and extraterrestrials that will blow your mind. It was a casual little slideshow that quoted the Reddit responses to the questions. So, these were popular answers from Reddit users about all of these neat ideas floating around in cosmology and astrobiology and the edges of science and science fiction. And some of these answers are legit scientific concepts or theories, while others are a bit less substantial, let's say. I want to go through the slideshow and give you my thoughts on these theories that they bring up. I'll basically explain the idea a bit deeper and just give you my thoughts on it. So let's begin with theory number 1. Our minds limit us from communicating with extraterrestrials. This theory was proposed by Dr. Jack Baird, a psychologist who worked with NASA at the SETI project in 1982. This is a really interesting idea, as it posits that our senses, our perception, our computational and logistical capacity are not enough to decode any alien communications should we happen to come across them. There are multiple ways in which this could be the case. In the most straightforward sense, it's possible that aliens communicate across vast distances using advanced technologies that we just don't understand and we don't know how to measure or intercept. Maybe we'll develop technology one day that can decode their messages. That's always a possibility. We live in the same universe, and we can learn about and exploit the same natural phenomena to our technological benefit. Maybe we can understand their technology and listen into their communications, but our minds just can't grasp the structure, complexity, or the nuances of their language, and so understanding them is impossible. That's a feasible outcome. Just consider any animal on Earth, even our beloved dogs and the familiar bird songs. Even though we can deeply analyze the sounds they make and attempt to understand how they communicate and try to simulate their own sounds to communicate with them, and to really understand what that means for the dog or for the bird or for whatever animal we're talking about, all of our efforts so far have been largely fruitless. We cannot talk to dogs, as it were. There was a notorious LSD experiment in the 70s that attempted to establish communications with dolphins, and let's just say that experiment didn't end successfully either. In another sense, perhaps aliens exist in a form that we will hardly recognize. I don't mean this in the mundane sense of some kind of strange chemical process that we don't quite recognize as life at first. I think any life that's complex enough to be able to form languages and communicate will almost certainly be immediately recognizable as life. When I say aliens exist in a form we hardly recognize, I mean something genuinely mysterious, like aliens that can exist or communicate across dimensions, whose true form and habitat are inaccessible and incomprehensible to us. This might sound absurd, and in most circumstances I would agree. But if you've had a psychedelic experience, particularly dimethyltryptamine, the idea of entities or consciousnesses in some other dimension seems weirdly possible. But it's so strange and so beyond the realm of our traditional understanding of the cosmos that I doubt this will ever be a problem for us, should we actually encounter alien life. I think any aliens we can realistically meet will be living in our dimension, and I think their language will necessarily have enough complexity and consistency that we can decode it, decipher it, learn the language, and establish communication with the alien civilization. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, might be an extraordinarily hard intergenerational project, but theoretically it's feasible. So for this theory, I think it's a valid concern in the abstract, but in practice, I doubt this will be a ultimately insurmountable problem. Theory number 2, we are truly alone. The quote on the slide says, "Aliens don't exist. Nobody else exists. Not even microbial life. It's just barren." So it begs the question, where did we come from? Why are we here? What about the rest of life on Earth? From bacteria to looming trees to majestic dinosaurs. And it's scary because what if we don't make it out? What if humanity just implodes and we never get to see the stars or build cities on other planets? Is humanity the best that the universe could come up with? Unquote. In a nutshell, this is basically the lonely Earth hypothesis with a more existential philosophical bent. And honestly, I don't really agree with that much of it. I don't really agree with it at all, honestly. I think it's unrealistic. Okay, so we have evidence that life began really quickly on Earth after it formed during the genesis of the solar system, within just the first few 100 million years. This suggests that if the conditions are right, life may be able to emerge quickly, where it's possible, and, like I said, where the conditions are favorable. In other words, when the environmental conditions favor life, I think that life will tend to emerge. After all, life is just a very complex, self-replicating chemical process that has evolved from an amalgamation of simpler chemical processes. If you can get those simple chemical processes going, like membrane formation and chains of redox reactions, then chemical evolution will lead to the production of a stable, self-reproducing biochemical platform, which is, basically, what life is. Now combine this with our knowledge of the deep biosphere, where microbes can live for millennia submerged tens or hundreds of meters in the crust, or aerosolized ecologies, where microbes suspended in the atmosphere can sustain themselves on rarefied particles and atmospheric gases. Consider extremophiles living in deep-sea hydrothermal vents, which is a habitat theorized to be the site of abiogenesis, the birth of life from non-life. When we take all of this into consideration, it seems preposterous and unreasonable to think that there's not even any microbial life anywhere but Earth. Earth isn't the only place in the cosmos with water and temperatures that facilitate carbon-based biochemistry. And on that note, there may be alternative biochemistries that can thrive in different places. A long time ago, I read a study about a nitrogen-based membrane system that would theoretically produce viable cells with working membranes on freezing cryoplanets. Or carbon-silicon-based life that can tolerate extremely high temperatures. These possibilities only improve the already extremely high probability that some kind of microbial life exists elsewhere in the cosmos. Intelligent life, on the other hand, is certainly much less common, and active communicating alien civilizations even less so. Okay, let's make a big assumption. Assuming we're the first truly sapient species on our planet with the ability to manipulate and interact with our environment like we do with fingers and not fins or a trunk, assuming we're the first species like that on our planet, that gives us a standard of about 3.9 billion years for intelligent life to form. Now this is all well and good, but what if we expand our definition of intelligent to include some of the smartest vertebrates besides us, like the cetaceans, the pigs, and the other great apes? And then we start to see how intelligence may not necessarily be that uncommon. What's really uncommon appears to be intelligence combined with opposable thumbs, or some kind of articulating appendage that allows the organism to perform complex actions with tools. Now, even if the probability of intelligent life is really low, there are billions of stars and planets out there. We're basically playing the Drake equation, a numbers game, where some of the numbers are so big that even if other numbers are small, the combined odds for intelligent life come out to be not that bad. There have actually been studies on this, and one recent study estimated anywhere from 36 to over 100 active communicating alien civilizations in the galaxy right now. And now consider the many additional planets with complex life, but no intelligent life, like our planet in the last 500 million years before humans existed. This lonely Earth hypothesis can be kind of crazy to think about, but at the end of the day, I don't think it's very realistic. Theory number 3. Extraterrestrials already live among us. The quoted passage reads, "Imagine that there could be an alien craft hiding in the deepest recess of the Mariana Trench right now. It's such a crazy thought. It would be a logical place to hide if they could get there. It's extremely inaccessible to us and we've barely been down there. Even when we do go down there, the subs can only see a short distance around them. Presumably, any alien craft would also detect a sub approaching long before the sub could detect them. They'd have plenty of time to simply move further across the trench." Unquote. I'm pretty skeptical about this idea, but relatively speaking, it's more plausible than theory 1 or 2. So if an advanced alien civilization existed, and they had the ability to travel between star systems, they literally could be here right now. That would be a technically possible outcome. There's nothing about Earth or our solar system that would make us inaccessible or unreachable to visitors capable of interstellar travel. Our world is orbiting out there in the cosmos as well, totally unprotected by anything but our own obscurity. Now, assuming aliens are here, they could have been here for hundreds or thousands or even millions of years. They could be hiding among us, hidden in concealed bases and observation posts, or even walking among us as human-like cyborgs or simulants. It's unlikely because I think something like this would have been discovered by now. Maybe the aliens left behind some refuse or wreckage or some lost or forgotten items. Maybe the aliens didn't conceal themselves properly, or somebody stumbled into their base. Maybe the militaries of the world, detecting strange signals or radiation, investigated the source and found the aliens, only to hurriedly cover it all up and keep their existence a secret. Or maybe the aliens really are just super good at staying concealed and unnoticed. Again, these are all theoretically possible. Now, assuming aliens are here, you really have to wonder what they're doing. Studying us? Studying our planet? Studying our planet's life forms? And this raises some eerie questions. Do they abduct us for research? Have they killed anyone, either on purpose or on accident? Have they affected our evolution in any way, such as by uplifting a population of ancestral pre-chimpanzees to create the first humans? Is their interest purely scientific, or do they want to colonize here? Have they already colonized here, and the colony really is buried underground, or submerged in the Mariana Trench, or something like that? Again, it's possible, but there's such an incredible chain of assumptions that we have to make to get here, that I think it's ultimately improbable. This one is extra creepy too, because in addition to being technically possible, there's no real easy way to rule it out, either. Theory number 4. Another Big Bang is on the horizon. Okay, this so-called theory is kind of incoherent. The Reddit user suggests that the continual expansion of the universe will destroy all things, from galaxies down to subatomic particles. This doesn't seem quite right. The expansion of the universe is driving galaxies apart, but that same process isn't currently driving the nuclei of atoms apart. Cosmic expansion is not making the particles themselves expand either. That's not what cosmic expansion is. The time till the heat death of the universe isn't long enough for this to happen, even if it theoretically could happen in the first place. It also definitely seems inaccurate to call this a new Big Bang, as there's no bang involved. It's, in fact, the opposite, as all the matter in the universe has expanded already. If everything is destroyed, from galaxies to atoms, there's no black holes or stars or any kind of singularity either. What is there left that could blow up? Spacetime expansion won't lead to the birth of a new universe, a la the Big Bang, because apparently it's going to cause the destruction of all matter in our current universe. No offense to this particular Reddit user, but his theory seems incoherent and scientifically dubious at best. And shame on the lazy, scientifically biased staff writers who threw this list together without even fact-checking the answers. I mean, I guarantee you there's a better answer somewhere in that Reddit thread. People are just lazy. Theory number 5. Humans are the rarest treasure in the universe. The quote from the Reddit user is, quote, "So what is the rarest thing in the universe? Far as we know, it's life, at least complex life. The circumstances for complex life as we know it to form are exceedingly rare, more than the existence of any particular element. Not only do you need the raw material for life to form, you need Goldilocks conditions and billions of years of near-perfect stability for it to evolve on its own. We have long been sampled, cataloged, and preserved. Our culture and knowledge is freely available to record. We're old news, with the exception that we have begun our descent through the Great Filter, and we are taking countless species with us. They aren't exactly hiding from us, but they do try to minimize interference and aren't interested in unnecessary contact. They are in our oceans because there is life down there that is rapidly dying off." Unquote. Okay, so this answer is kind of a permutation of the theory number 3, that aliens already live among us. This theory posits that aliens have visited our planet, studied the life on it, including us, and now we're simply being allowed to exist, like animals on a protected nature reserve. In the slide description, they say we're being preserved, which implies that our planet is being protected or guarded. But why? Perhaps so that no other aliens can come and mess up our biosphere, or more sinister, perhaps so that we can never leave. This theory, I think, is remarkably interesting, because there's so many divergent implications that you can really let your mind run wild. For example, maybe the aliens are benevolent, and their preservation of our planet is purely for our own benefit and protection. If they aren't exactly hiding from us, that suggests they may interfere from time to time to make sure we don't destroy ourselves. And if that's the case, then they should probably come visit sometime soon, because things aren't looking too good on the planet right now. You could identify a couple pressure points that seem like they might be ready to burst. Perhaps the purpose of their benevolence is to hold our hand and guide us as we progress towards becoming an interstellar civilization. That'd be awesome. Or perhaps they're protecting us from other less benevolent aliens. If this is the case, it's possible that our alien protectors are overprotective and won't let us leave the planet or the solar system as some kind of cosmic house arrest or witness protection program. Honestly, that'd be really lame. If we had the technology to leave the solar system but were prevented, that'd be a serious bummer. Although an axiom of this theory seems to be that intelligent life is extremely rare and needs protecting. So it's likely that that protection would be against natural disasters and self-destruction, and not protection against other intelligent civilizations. I mean, in this theory, other alien civilizations are exceedingly rare. There's also less charitable implications too. These aliens could treat Earth like a nature preserve, where its inhabitants, including humans, can be used for sport hunting, or cultivated for food or something. Perhaps intelligent life is almost always dangerous and destructive. Whichever civilization was able to achieve supremacy first, they could then identify blossoming civilizations, like our own. We could be deliberately walled off, like a prison planet, or something out of the cosmic zoo hypothesis. In all of these scenarios, humans would be a valuable commodity to be sampled, cataloged, and preserved, whether we're like some endangered creature or a prized game animal. Much like theory number 3, I think this one is technically plausible, but unlikely. Theory number 3 rested on a bed of assumptions, and this theory rests on one more, as it assumes that not only are aliens already here, but they also have some motive to isolate and preserve us. Theory number 6, the Great Darkness. Quote, eventually all the stars in the universe will die, then protons will begin to decay, in theory, leaving us in a pit of darkness with only black holes filling the empty void. But eventually, even black holes will die, and after that, the universe will be left cold, empty, and dark. Unquote. This theory is rather bleak, but at least it's coherent, unlike Theory 4, which was all about cosmic expansion leading to a new Big Bang. If the universe keeps expanding, it won't create a new Big Bang, it'll lead to this, what's explained here in Theory 6, the Great Darkness. I don't really have much to say about this theory, as it doesn't really pertain to anything related to biology or alien life. As far as I understand cosmology, from a layman's perspective, I think this theory is very likely. I think this is the most likely outcome for our current universe, second only to the possibility of some kind of endless, cyclical, Big Bang, Big Crunch phenomenon, with cycles lasting perhaps hundreds of billions or even trillions of years. Honestly though, the realistic nature of this endless darkness theory makes it profoundly sad. When the universe ages and expands, and every star system is so far apart from all the other star systems, there is no hope of interstellar travel, barring some kind of sci-fi warp drive or something. When this happens, interstellar panspermia will taper off and perhaps become a thing of the past, or at least extraordinarily rare. All life in the cosmos will become isolated on their home planets, forever, doomed to die with their star as it expands and collapses. The only chance for life to survive this period of the universe is if intelligent life creates artificial habitats in space. But even then, there's only so long they can last. Fusion power, hydrogen power, solar power, no matter what energy source you use, eventually these habitats will run out of fuel or available energy, and they'll collapse too. With them goes the last chances for life in the universe. This great darkness is truly a terrible, frightening thing. Theory number 7. They don't want us to leave. Quote, maybe aliens want to make sure we do not leave Earth due to our violent nature and nuclear weapons. Maybe they will let us choose, give up nuclear weapons, and they will help humanity reach the next stage, or destroy our nuclear weapons themselves and keep us prisoner of this world. Unfortunately, our leaders will decide our future, not us. Unquote. This is a classic trope in science fiction, and honestly, it's probably one of the more realistic ones that we've come across so far. It builds on theory number 3, the idea that aliens have already visited us and seen what we're like, and this has led them to initiate safety protocols that keep us bound to our planet, preventing us from leaving and spreading throughout the galaxy. If this happens, there could be several reasons why, and the implications are, in a word, terrifying. First of all, in any circumstance, this theory is predicated on the existence of a very advanced alien civilization that has the power to confine a species to its home planet. That's pretty intense, and it's pretty scary too. Next, this alien civilization sees us as a threat, either to itself, which I think is unlikely considering the technological disparity between them and us, or to the galaxy at large, in the sense that we're sloppy, polluting trailer trash who ruin our own planet, and we certainly can't be trusted with any others. Now this is freaky because it suggests that these aliens know what they're doing. They've seen young civilizations emerge and then destroy themselves, or cause hellacious damage to other civilizations or even to other planets, and they've learned that this must be prevented. It's pretty sad, but when your perspective is, long time, when you're thinking on the scale of hundreds of thousands or even maybe millions of years, this is also totally understandable, that they would see us as this high-risk civilization in danger of spreading and causing harm that was in immediate need of containment. There's also a less militaristic, less malicious interpretation of this theory. Perhaps life is so messy that just traveling to another world will inevitably contaminate it with microbes and stuff. So if you're an advanced, ancient alien civilization who measures time in centuries or millennia, you may be inclined to protect planets and natural biomes and biodiversity. They might see planets as natural petri dishes, each hosting its own forms of life that have been evolving in cosmic purity for billions of years. Swashbuckling adventurers seeking to explore and conquer other planets are thus super destructive because they could contaminate entire biospheres. I'd much rather that this be the cause of our planetary imprisonment, as opposed to some kind of galactic military effort to keep us down. In the first case, we could develop better technologies to make space travel safer, but in the second case, we would be at the mercy of aliens who may or may not be interested in human extinction to solve the problem once and for all. Theory number 8. We're stuck in a cycle. Quote, the two prevailing theories about the end of the universe are the Big Crunch and the Big Freeze, both related to the expansion and the possible contraction of spacetime. If it continues to expand forever, particles will be so far apart that no complex molecules can exist, leaving a soup of single particles light years between each other. Stars and galaxies do not last forever, and eventually no new ones will be created. The universe will be dead forever. This is the leading theory. The Big Crunch theorizes that eventually the expansion will reverse, and we will contract back into a singularity, as in right before the Big Bang, and then another Big Bang may take place. This cycle may go on forever. Unquote. I don't really have too much to add on to this, except that it's a personal favorite of mine. It's pretty amazing to think that the universe may be perpetually bound to the cycle of expansion and contraction. Each period of the cycle spans billions of years and involves complex chemistries that can ultimately produce life. And that life may evolve to think about its existence in this universe and build technologies that allow it to explore the universe and perhaps even escape from the universe and to escape from the cycle of expansion and contraction itself. But that idea is deep science fiction. It's a far cry from the hints in the mathematical models that suggest a grand cosmic cycle. Also, I want to point out, in the beginning of the quote, the Reddit user mentions particles flying so far apart that complex molecules can exist, and a soup of single particles light years between each other over long enough periods of time. This is what makes sense. But the previous theory that I said didn't make any sense, the reason why was because they were referring to not the molecules, but the atoms themselves being disrupted and pulled apart by the expansion of spacetime. But no, the difference here is that it's much easier to break apart molecules into their constituent atoms than it is to break atoms through some kind of fission process. The expansion of spacetime can scatter atoms, but can't destroy them, at least according to my layman's understanding of the topic. Alright, theory number 9. We are an alien project. Quote, aliens are from a decimated planet, trying to re-engineer and restore their species from the life forms found on Earth several million years ago. We are the result of that, but only a step towards the completion of their long-term goal. Unquote. I love this goofy idea because it's fun and super fascinating to think about. It's almost definitely not the case, but if it were, and it was proven somehow, it would probably lead to a species-wide existential crisis. So that could be bad. The Reddit user suggests a scenario where the aliens are trying to repair their own species. So what does that mean? If they're using Earth-native species like ancestral chimpanzees, that's categorically not their own species. So what's going on here? Perhaps they're integrating their genetic information into us to sustain it or to allow it to mutate a little bit. But how would this work? Certainly, they, being aliens from a distant planet, would have different molecules and biochemical processes in their genetic code. To put genetic information into us, they'd have to translate their genome, the information in it, into ours, such that the expressed regulatory effect or the expressed protein performed an analogous function as the alien protein from the alien gene in the alien body. But it's also possible it doesn't work that way at all for them. It's really an open-ended question as to how this might work, if it's even possible at all. I'd honestly be leaning towards it not being possible. Or perhaps the aliens would use a complex set of induced mutations to rapidly advance our brain function and give rise to full-fledged sapience. Perhaps so that we could understand some kind of cultural information they wished to transmit. We can see the unusually rapid brain growth in our evolutionary record, but then we must wonder, where is the alien cultural information? If we haven't seen it yet, it's possible it's simply not the right time yet. We may still require several thousand years of evolutionary improvement to our cognition before we can meaningfully interact with the aliens and understand them. Or perhaps they're already transmitting information to us, but we just don't realize it because it's hidden, or it's too subtle or mysterious, or because the method of receiving the information and decoding it has been lost to time. Assuming the aliens are using us for this purpose, what's the end game here? What does it look like? What are they waiting for? What is, as the Reddit user said, their long-term goal? I suppose this would shed some light on whatever our intended purpose is. If their planet is decimated and they're trying to restore their own species, humans may end up being little more than cattle. Were cultivated in large numbers to be used to nourish their population as it recovers its numbers, or to produce some organ that they use, or some metabolite that they use, anything like that. And in such a situation, if that information got out, global civilization might break down into armed resistance against the alien invaders, and they either get spooked and leave, or war against us, which will almost certainly not end well for us. But then again, the original option didn't really have a happy ending either, so you can see how this is a dire and bleak circumstance all around. If they intend to make us a descendant race carrying on their legacy, they may want to check in on us and reassess what that legacy is, because we're industrializing so fast that the planet is dramatically warming, and many forms of life are nearing extinction. At some point in this biosphere breakdown, alien intervention might actually be desirable. We may be relieved if they return to save their pet project. As you can see, there are many ways that we can go with this neat idea. It's really interesting because there's so many potential explanations. And finally, theory number 10. Some aliens exist solely to gather intel. Quote, "My theory for the Greys, aliens, is simple. A contrived race of intelligent beings that have been made for scientific exploration and supplied with technology by a superior race. The Greys are a part of a federation of space aliens. This race of Grey space dwellers have been tasked to study primitive worlds and their inhabitants by abduction. They are looking for something. My guess is a specific type of genetic code that lies dormant within humans." Unquote. Okay, this is a super awesome idea, and it's one of my favorite running sci-fi explanations, or the lore and background that's been given to the stereotypical Greys. It seems entirely reasonable that an alien race may look dramatically different than us, and could figure that this would be unnerving or deleterious to successful face-to-face communication, and thus the aliens may create intermediaries in forms that are more tolerable and acceptable to our eyes. The Greys fit the bill, as they seem to be both alien and humanoid at the same time. Hell, there's a competing idea that the Greys are our evolutionary descendants, who are beings of such unimaginable technology that they're able to come back in time to interact with us. Now, I think the time travel idea is a bit silly, but the other ideas here are pretty cool. Now, I'm not sure what the Reddit user means when they suggest that the aliens are looking for something. If they're looking for some kind of valuable genetic code to produce some kind of protein or something, they probably have computers and technologies that could create an optimal version in a relatively short time frame, instead of going off on an intensive interstellar gene sampling effort that spreads across who knows how much of the galaxy. I think it's much more likely in this scenario that the Greys are used as both researchers that perform field sampling and reporters that gather intel on human behavior and culture, as part of a larger project to develop peaceful and effective diplomatic ties and integration into a larger galactic community. That's perhaps my overly optimistic, arguably naive perspective on this theory number 10. Alright, so there you go. A goofy little list of 10 mind-blowing theories. Not gonna lie, there's some good ones in this list. There's also some kind of silly ones that could have been replaced with something way better, like theory number 4 there. If that one was replaced with some wicked theory about the Great Filter, or the possibilities of a functional warp drive, or Earth-like alien worlds, that would have made this list a whole lot more badass. But hey, it was fun.